On the 22nd of July, 1991, Tracy Edwards was sitting in a bar in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, when he was approached by a guy by the name of Jeffrey Dahmer. After a brief conversation, they decided to go back to Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. When entering the apartment, Tracy Edwards discovered a very strange, awful smelling odor. And to cut out all the gory bits and pieces, he eventually opened the freezer, and inside the freezer he found a severed head of a person that had their head cut off and had been stuck in the freezer. After a scuffle, he escaped, and he ran out and he alerted police, who then came to the apartment, only to find that there was more than just a severed head in the freezer. There were barrels of formaldehyde with full bodies inside. Around the apartment were scattered files of body pieces. And it turned out that Jeffrey Dahmer had murdered 17 people over a period of time of 13 years and had not been caught. These body parts, some of them he had eaten, and some of them were left for preservation for later consumption. I want to take you back to 33 AD. Can I have the next slide, please? There was a thief who had stolen stuff and he was caught. And he was then sentenced to death to die on a cross. It just so happened to be a cross that was right next door to the Jesus who was crucified on the cross. Now you might ask the question, if you were the judge, Jeffrey Dahmer was given 15 consecutive life sentences for the gruesome murder of 17 people. The thief on the cross was given a death sentence by hanging on a cross for theft. How would you judge that? Is it fair? You might not think so. Jeffrey Dahmer was obviously sentenced to jail. And after 2 years in jail, in April 1994, Roy Ratcliffe, a preacher from downtown Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, came to visit him in prison. After 2 months later, on the 10th of May 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer confessed his sin, accepted Jesus, and was baptized in the prison for the forgiveness of his sins. Now the thief on the cross turned to Jesus and confessed his sin to Jesus. And Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." In both these circumstances, Jesus' grace covered both of these people's sins. And sometimes we sit back And we look at our own lives and we look at the sin that we actually have, and sometimes we blasé and go through life continuing to sin. But Jesus is there. He not only covered Jeffrey Dahmer's sin, but he covered the thief on the cross sin through his grace. And you know, sometimes we just look at a line like this and we can say to ourselves, if this is where we sit on the line of grace in Jesus, and when we sin, we actually fall off that line. And Jesus says, come with me, and he puts us back up. I've covered your sin. And we sin again and we fall off. And we get back on because Jesus takes us and he puts us back up there. And we drop off when we get back up. Because Jesus' grace, the grace that he died for, covers our sin when we do wrong. But should we continue to sin that grace may abound? As we read in Romans, no, by no means. And if we willfully continue to sin, we just drop off further off the grace line. On the 28th of November 1994, literally 5 months after Jeffrey Dahmer was baptized into Christ, Christopher Scarver, a fellow inmate, bludgeoned him to death and killed him in prison. A gruesome story, I know, but he was saved. Now, the question I need to ask you this morning, if you passed away today, where do you stand with Jesus? Because you are going to be standing next to the thief on the cross. You're going to be standing next to Jeffrey Dahmer in paradise, in heaven. Because all have sinned. And sometimes we like to put degrees of sin. Jesus did not do that. He said, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, I have come to give you life and life in abundance. Through his death, his burial, and his resurrection, we all have our sins eradicated. And we all will stand one day before the judgment seat. And we will be standing next to Jeffrey Dahmer. We'll be standing next to the thief on the cross. And we'll be standing next to one another. And we will be thankful that day that we decided to take Jesus on in baptism. And we will be thankful that day that Jesus' grace still covers us for the sins that we actually do today. That's why he died. And that's why today we take the bread and we take the wine and we celebrate that grace that Jesus gave to us. So while we do that, let's have a word of prayer and then we'll share this incredible moment as we contemplate the death, the burial, and resurrection and the grace of Jesus. Almighty God and Father, as we just ponder sometimes what we would seem unfair, we know, Father, that you are a loving God and that you care for us so much that you are willing to overcome and give us grace for all our sins. And as we take this bread and this wine this morning, we remember Jesus' blood and the body that was broken just so that we could spend eternity with you, knowing that your grace covers our multitude of sins. Thank you so much, Father, for Jesus, what he means to us, and that we can spend eternity with you. In his name.